All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our webinar this evening. My name is Angel Caglin. I'm the Executive Director of the Caribbean Innovation and Leadership Lab. Sil, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And of course, a very special thank you to the 5 physicians who have joined us. We can imagine that it's not easy for 5 professionals such as these young people to join us, given the work that they do, as well as the personal lives that everyone leads as well. So just want to say thank you. And I do want to start by acknowledging the reality of the school term for you. Many of you are balancing things like your classrooms, all of the paperwork and the grading that comes with that, and planning, and families, of course, and the pace that comes with being an educator. So you being here really says that you're committed to yourself and to your profession. And of course, I want to acknowledge that even right now, we are grieving the losses of colleagues and friends from the profession as well. And this makes what we're discussing here even more meaningful to us. Just before we begin, just a few shared agreements to keep this a very supportive and safe space. We do have some medical professionals with us this evening, but this session is purely educational and reflective, so it should not be considered a medical consultation. The doctors must be proud that I'm saying that, right? We want to make sure we say this is not a medical consultation. And of course, to respect everyone's privacy, we want to make sure that we don't share any identifying details about ourselves, our students, etc. Okay, in the chat. And if anything resonates really strongly with you, take a note and feel free to follow up privately with a health professional. In fact, we'll make contact information for all of our panelists available to those of you who are here in St. Lucia so that you can have an easier follow-up. Some additional participation guidelines. So your microphone will remain muted to prevent background noise. We will be using the chat, so feel free to start saying hello in the chat, and if you have a comment or a question, post it in the chat as well. And we will have a couple of polls as we go along for the session. So if you're on your phone, take a moment to locate that chat and poll features, because we do want your participation. When you leave here this evening, we really want you to have a clearer sense of what are those quiet warning signs that we as educators often ignore. And we want you to have some language that can describe what you may be experiencing without any guilt, without any shame. And of course, some doable next steps that you can take could be this week, this term, or this year, realistic for the schedules that you have as educators. So tonight is really a part of Sil's webinar series called Teacher the Person. And this is a space that's created for educators, about educators, and with educators. It exists because at Sil we believe something simple. Education improves when educators are supported as whole people, not just as professionals. So it's not just about what you do for the students, but it's about what you do for yourself as well. In the Caribbean, educators are carrying a lot of responsibilities, and it's from the academic expectations, managing student challenges, administrative demands, and of course the social emotional needs of your students, of your staff. So we say educators, not just classroom teachers, but all educators at all levels of the education system. A lot of times in that reality, the person beneath the role can disappear. And so Teacher the Person is creating that structured space for conversation so that educators really get time to have conversations about well-being, about their identity, about sustainability, what it takes to stay healthy in this work. Now, the first session that we had in September was exploring teachers or educators' inner lives, right? Through the theme, the mask, the mirror, and the interrupted teacher, reclaiming the self beneath the role. And that session was with Verity Solomon. It reminded us that before we ask educators to innovate, to lead, to transform education, we need to make space for the human being doing the work. And so because our work at SIL really centers on strengthening education through innovation, leadership, and evidence-informed practice, we think that we need to do that by building the capacity with educators and education stakeholders around the region. and offering SIL as a space for that consistent practical source of support for the profession is important. Tonight's session is focused on educator physical health because teaching lives in the body. You know, you as educators, you stand for long hours, you talk all day, you carry materials, you manage stress, and a lot of the times, you know, you ignore the symptoms because school has to go on. And a lot of us as educators, we may delay care until something forces us to stop. So we want to interrupt that pattern while it's early enough to matter. So our panelist is made up of physicians with teaching roots, which is really unique and exciting. Medical doctors who understand educator life, not as outsiders, but from lived experience in the classroom. We have one more person who's going to be on screen with us, Telomina Emmanuel Brown. So before we start, I just want to do a quick poll, right? Just to bring your voice into the room. And I'm going to drop this poll here. All right, which best describes how your body feels most days during the school term? Can you see the poll? Can you see the poll? All right. So we want your feedback here. And we're seeing some responses coming in already. Often exhausted or in pain seems to be taking the lead. We'll give it a few more seconds. We have about 47 people in the room, so we have someone who's mostly fine. Hallelujah. So we're seeing how this is going, right? Often exhausted or in pain. Or followed closely by tired but managing. My question is, are you ready? We'll see tonight. All right? We'll get another chance to share. And of course, please, you know, share in the chat. Someone says me right now. Yes, tired but managing. So even while people are responding, we've got someone stop paying attention. So while people are sharing here, interesting fact, and any of my co-hosts can admit people to the room while we're chatting. Some time ago, I realized quite a few of my colleagues who worked with me at Sir Ira Simmons Secondary School had gone on to study medicine. And 5 out of the 6 of us here all worked at Sir Ira Simmons Secondary School. Interesting fact. And I just found that fascinating. And I saw immediately there was an opportunity. You know, clearly I'm living this innovation mindset thing that I'm preaching. Here was a group of people who were living at the intersection of teaching and medicine. And I wondered, what would a conversation with them look like? And it took us some time. I started with Dr. Leanne, and for, I think it was months, we were talking about doing this, having this discussion. And eventually we got the group that you see here together to do just that, have that conversation with you as an audience. Now, side notes. Apparently, based on this panel, teachers seem to find it really easy to become doctors. So, hint, hint, if you're thinking of a career change, don't think that you can't go from teaching to medicine. The evidence is right here. All right. So, thank you so much. We've seen the poll, we've seen the results. Somebody said lawyer too. Right, there you go. Anything apparently. If you can get to medicine, you can get to anything as a teacher. So let's move from this introduction here to just a quick introduction of the panelists that we have. And they just want to tell us briefly about themselves, and you will learn more about them. We will share their bios later so that you can get to know them a little bit more. And as I mentioned, their contact information. So let's get people introduced to you. We'll start with, there you go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Rochelle de Tourville. I hope you can hear me clearly now. I'm a general practitioner, right? Currently, I work in mental health. And when I was a teacher, I would admit that I wasn't very in tune with my body. And I didn't really understand how the connection between the job and my physical health at the time.
I'm just spotlighting all our participants here. Martin?
Do you want me to go again?
Okay,
You're good.
can you
Okay.
guys hear me? All right, so good night, everyone. I'm Dr. Leanne Yard. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for the tremendous support. I realize we have a great turnout for our first ever event of this kind. Thank you so much. Um, I was a teacher for 10 years, so trust me, I understand how important this discourse is tonight. And transitioning from a doctor, right now I work at the Betty Wells Polyclinic, which is a former VH. I am seeing patients coming in with signs and symptoms that I once experienced when I was a teacher, and I can totally relate. So, having doctors who were teachers before is really important because you now have somebody who can empathize with you, not just because it's their job, but because we actually walk the walk and talk the talk. So, us having this discussion, I think, is just the start of many. I do hope that today we can reach some sort of, how will I say, some liaison between doctors and teachers, and for you guys to feel more comfortable in coming to us for assistance. Yeah. So I'm really happy to be here tonight, and let's see how this goes.
Some people said they weren't seeing Dr. Yad. I have spotlighted everyone. Hopefully you can see them on your screen. But yeah, Dr. Yad and I are sharing the same space as well. So we're also sharing the audio. So hopefully you will be able to see her. All right. And we have, yes,
Good
here we
night,
go.
everyone. I'm Dr. Eustace Monroe Jr. I currently work as a general practitioner and also assigned to mental health. Prior to working as a doctor, I worked 3 years as a secondary school mathematics teacher. I taught at the Sir Ira Simon Secondary School and the Babono Secondary School. And for me, um, when it came to prioritization of my own medical medical needs. There were times that the cares of the teaching profession took priority over my own health, which is in a sense, it was not necessarily the best practice. And over time, as you grow, as you learn to prioritize yourself, which means that you have to take care of yourself, get your medical checkups and whatnot. But that is something that I was guilty of during my tenure as a teacher.
Yeah, we've seen confession time tonight, eh? All right. Who are we missing on our panel here? Rashad?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Rashad Prosper. I currently am a general practitioner. I work in the emergency department at OKAU. So unlike for my colleagues, I'm a junior in the field. I taught for 3 months. But during the time that I taught, it was transitioning from internship and before I went back into the hospital. And during the time that I taught, I realized that there were a lot of things that I noticed that a lot of the teachers did that were kind of similar to how we did it in internship, where there's a lot of self-neglect and a lot of propensity to put the priority on work. A lot of the times it's hard to switch off. I've seen teachers take work home and continue to, like, it never switches off. They accept responsibilities that are above what it is that's expected of them. And then they continue to go. And then it's like they work throughout the day and then they're still working throughout the night and they're working on the weekends. So that's one of the things that I really, really noticed during my time teaching. Yeah, but that's pretty much my story in a nutshell.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Rashad. And Dr. Emmanuel Brown?
Good evening, teachers. Good evening, fellow colleagues and persons out of the medical and teaching field as well. My name is Dr. Telemina Emmanuel Brown. I am a teacher because once a teacher, always a teacher. And I transitioned from teaching into the medical field. I have taught both at the secondary level at Ira Simmons with some of the colleagues here for 4 years. I did medical school and then I taught at the tertiary level for about 2 years and then went into full practice of medicine. When I was a teacher, I started off very enthusiastic, right? As if starting off anything that you do for the first time, you're so excited, you're going to be the best teacher ever, until I started with poor habits, okay? Because sometimes over enthusiasm can allow us to neglect ourselves. And so, pretty much, probably halfway through, I realized, okay, no, you're doing this wrong. But this is not new. I'm sure many of us have the similar stories. So to start off is to identify and to start good habits from the beginning.
Look at that, people. Just in the introductions, and you're already getting good medical advice here, right? And I see it's already resonating with some people because we can see them in the chat, responding and admitting that, yeah, these stories are resonating with them as well. So we're going to focus on a few things, as we said, identifying those signs, seeing what are some of the patterns that are emerging, and then seeing what we can do about it from now, not just talk about what's happening. So the first question that I have for the panel is, and you started talking about a lot of it already, but looking back at your time as an educator, what are some of the physical, the strains, the symptoms, the health challenges that you experienced, but you just normalize it as, well, this is just part of the job. But now, as a medical doctor, you recognizing that these are issues that need to be addressed. They're appearing in educators' bodies, and you wish you had understood or noticed these earlier.
All right,
That's
so
Dr. Yes.
okay, so I'll go first. I'll be brief. So teaching was like my first job out of school, not high school, but out of university, my very first job. And when I was a teacher, I had palpitations. Like I was always very nervous. My heart would beat out of my chest. I used to have a belly pain. I didn't know what was going on until later down. I ended up in the polyclinic, and they're like, "But you're having a panic attack." And I was like, then I had to sit down and be like, "Oh wow, this is what's going on." Like, as I lived my day-to-day feeling that way, and then when it got really bad, I ended up at the polyclinic only to find out what I was feeling was a panic attack. So that's one thing. So as a new teacher, I felt like there was just a lot of new things to me, planning, classroom management. And if you don't have enough guidance when you start, it can affect you negatively, I would say. Another thing that I experienced, I had a lot of back pain. Yes, I was only, how old was I? I was 22, thereabouts. And I had serious back pain, and I was sharing with the others. Maybe some of it could have been, so due to the furniture in the classroom, the furniture in the staff room, that could have been a factor. But now in my practice, I'm seeing that it could also have been like just the mental load of the job and how it was affecting me, and it was manifesting as back pain. So that's my experience. I don't know if any of you are going through the same things or have experienced the same, but I guess we can discuss later. I will hand over to my other colleagues.
That's fascinating. Imagine feeling that way and not knowing what it is, and your anxiety levels are that high that you're having panic attacks. So this may be happening to a few people, and they may just think, I'm not feeling well. There's something wrong with my heart, but you have the language for it now, right? This is anxiety. And there are things that you would need to do to be able to manage that anxiety. Dr. Monros?
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on to what Dr. Ditterville mentioned, for me, when I first came to the teaching profession, it was actually my first job out of university. Well, that's before I went to medical school, but it was my first job after I left UEKville. And I remember when I used to teach how ridiculous it was for me to just be catching all sorts of illnesses that children come into the classroom with. So a child comes in with the usual colds, flus, gastroenteritis, that sort of thing. I found myself catching the same thing. And that's even after you do your precaution, you wash your hands, use your hand sanitizer, and all of these things. I still found myself getting sick. But again, in the teaching environment, if you do not check yourself well, your immune system becomes vulnerable because your chances are you're not eating properly, you're not sleeping as you should, you're taking work, you're going above and beyond your duties on a daily. And so you allow your body to become so weak to the point where you pick up any illness that somebody catches. The other thing that used to bother me a lot, and I see it at times with other former colleagues and whatnot, is migraines. And the interesting thing was that when I came into teaching, and again, I was one when it came to lesson planning, preparing materials for the students to use in the classroom. I used to stay up all night, putting in effort, making the materials, making the charts, making the manipulatives, all the different aids to help the students. But in so doing, I used to neglect my sleep. And there were times I used to have very frequent migraines. But again, because of our culture, we just say, well, you know what? It's just a little headache. Just push through that. Just take a Panadol and just push through. There are times, these are signs that your body needs rest. And so for people like me, I just kept neglecting that and it affected me later on. Or even another situation where, you come to a classroom and for some reason, whenever you enter in that particular classroom, you find yourself coughing uncontrollably. You're looking to see if there is any kind of trigger. You might just dismiss it and say, well, probably it's just from the chalk, probably just from the little dust that's in the classroom, but not realizing that the classroom is actually filled with mold behind the chalkboard, behind the whiteboard, um, in the different crevices, and that is all, and all of that is triggering the symptoms that you're experiencing. So a lot of these things, these are issues that I personally used to downplay as a teacher, but then later on, learning more, you come to the realization that, hey, it's affecting my health. And these are things that we have to look out for if we have to ensure that we maintain our good health.
Thank you so much. I want to jump in with so many comments, but we have some other contributions as well, Dr. Yad.
Okay, so I taught for 10 years. As I said, I started off at the Bukai Secondary School. I did 1 year there. And let me tell you, I struggled through that 1 year. I had a countdown. I thought I would not make it. And then I did 9 more years. So that's me. Let me tell you. And after that 1 year, I went to Bokash Combine and Masha Combine. I was shared between the two because I taught music at that time. I had a ball. Let me tell you, the little ones, that was my enthusiastic stage. So during my 10-year tenure, I can tell you how I went through the stages of burnout. I'll tell you. So at that point, as Telemina was explaining, when you start off, you're enthusiastic, you're excited, you want to take on every task. And at that time, I was fresh out of South Africa, so I have the energy, right? So anything, yes, I can do it. A teacher is absent. I taught music. Oh, I'll take on the class. Oh, yes, we're having a good time. Anything they want. La Marguerite Festival I did, school calypso I did, school sports I did, everything. My nickname was I did, right? So that was the enthusiastic stage because there are 5 stages of burnout. So in the beginning of my tenure, at the enthusiastic stage is also called the honeymoon stage. So well, then, I always had a love for medicine, but I was not able to get a scholarship in the beginning. So I was like, I'm somebody I like to be active. So while I was waiting, trying to see how I would get the medical scholarship, I said, let me do something. So I did a business degree. Okay. I did it open campus with UB. All right. So now I am teaching and doing school part-time. And not just any easy degree. Those of you who have done UE, UE is not easy, right? And I taught music at the time, so we had an after-school music program where we had orchestra. So I'm teaching during the day. I have orchestra after school. When I get home, I have to study, I have assignments, etc., etc. But we still at the enthusiastic stage. I can do it. Yes, I'm doing it. Then by the time I get to like nearing the end of my degree, I reached the point where now I'm tired because trying to manage all of this, right? And on top of having to do UE work after school, you have to do lesson plans, right? I think a lot of us would be so happy if we didn't have to do scheming, if we didn't have to plan and scheme, etc. I think that would make a big difference because then you do not have to take the work home, right? Homework is home work at home. Scheming is at school, right? You shouldn't have to do that at home. So that is one thing. I do not know how we can get that to work out. We need a miracle for that one for teachers, because that alone is a mental and physical stress, right? Trust me, I know, right? So then I had to be juggling, right? Circus life, I would call it. So now that was the onset of my stress. That's the second stage of burnout. Okay. Then when I realized we have exams, I forgot that part too. There are exams, not just assignments. So I have to study for the exams as well, Lord Jesus. So now you find like you waking up, you're tired. You're not even at school yet. Before the school day has begun, you are already tired. And what a lot of people don't realize, they will be like, oh, it's just teaching, it's chalk and talk. That we've heard that phrase, chalk and talk, chalk and talk. But they don't realize the mental load that teaching has, right? It might not be as physically demanding as a construction worker, but mentally, it's draining. It's draining. And I found during my teaching career, I had to deal with a lot of social issues rather than academic issues, right? So you have to deal with everything that's happening with the children at home before you could even start your class. You have to deal with who didn't have breakfast. You have to deal with who is not coming to school for the past 2, 3 weeks. You have to deal with who get into a fight. You have to deal with this and you can't even start the lesson, right? So this is physically, mentally, and emotionally taxing. And we do not realize, and this is where I will highlight an important word in our theme for today, quiet, the quiet signs, right? We don't even realize these signs because they are not physical, but they are mental, emotional, right? And that actually will manifest later on physically. So we just push it aside, like, okay, today was a difficult day, but we'll get through it. But no, we cannot sweep these things under the rug because they will manifest later on. So said, so then. So then you reach to the third stage of burnout, which is chronic burnout, right? That is where now you start to exude or you start to see physical signs, right? So with me, I was just always tired. I didn't know what was happening. By that time, I had finished my degree, right? I was like, okay, finally, I got through that. But what it left me with was probably worse than when I started the degree, right? I was just always tired, and I went to several different doctors. At that time, I was at Sir Ira, I met Angel. I'm not sure if Angel would remember. I just couldn't find out what was wrong with me. I went to Mark Nick, I went to so many different physicians. They thought I was anemic, all different things. And then after several different doctors and studies, I found out I had an autoimmune condition, right? Before that, I was fine, perfectly fine. Teaching, I have an autoimmune condition. How? 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 And what is the main trigger of autoimmune conditions? Stress. Stress is the number one trigger. With an autoimmune condition, the word auto is important to highlight. It is when your body mistakenly attacks healthy cells for invading cells. So your body is just attacking itself and it doesn't know why. Your body is just haywire. Everything is just haywire. The same way you feel when you're at school, that's how your body is reacting. So that is why the mental stress that we're going through, as much as we might just push it aside, it is now starting to manifest physically, and that is exactly what happened to me. So now I have an autoimmune condition. When I feel it coming on, the flares, it's just so subtle. It's just like you just wake up and you feel like today I just cannot do it. There are days if I have a flare, I cannot even get up out of the bed. Seriously. So if any of your teachers who are on here right now are listening and you feel that way, you just feel you might have brain fog, you might have frequent headaches, you just have weakness, tiredness for no reason. There are days you do nothing and you're tired. You wake up tired, you go to sleep tired, and the next week you're tired, the week after that you're tired. And you're wondering why you have that chronic fatigue. All of these are signs of burnout, right? And then when you get to that stage now of chronic burnout, what do? We as teachers, we just figure, oh, that's all part of the job. Teaching is just so stressful. And then we just have, we will make it to the next vacation. When the term starts in September, oh, let's just make it to Christmas vacation. When the term starts in January, oh, let's just make it to Easter. Let's just push through to and then we pushing through and we're seeing that we're actually doing it. And we just accept that as a way of life. But that is not what we're supposed to do. We are not supposed to push our bodies beyond its capacity physically. Even God had a need to rest. Who are we? We need to rest. We need to rest. And I brought something with me to be very dramatic. Do not be afraid to get the sick leave. Okay? If your body says it cannot do it, it cannot do it. But all right? We are not superheroes. We have to put ourselves first like the government. Remember that. Okay? If you cannot make it, you cannot make it. The children will be okay. Trust me, they will be more than okay. All right?
Yeah.
So when you get to that point now, you're in the fourth stage of the chronic burnout. This is when I have seen patients in my clinics for that. They come and they tell me, Doc, I just lost my voice. I don't know. I don't have a voice. Right? Chronic tonsillitis, ear infections, all of these, as I said, the chronic fatigue. Some of them frequent UTIs, because you don't go to the bathroom. Right? Frequent UTIs, back pain, lower back pain, leg pain, bone spurs, because you're standing on your feet all day. At Sir Ira, we had how many floors? You have to be walking up and down, right? So all of these are now manifesting as physical signs. Yeah. And then the fifth stage is where it's like habitual burnout. It's like you have accepted it. Okay, that's just what it is. But now it reflects negatively in your work life because at that stage, you will exhibit signs of indifference, like, what they have school sports, I'm good to that. Remember, I started enthusiastic, I did everything, but then at the end, I don't want to do that. When they have that whatever celebration, I'll stay home. Teachers appreciation, that's a day off. Pretty day off, vacation, right? So you get to that point where you're indifferent. You don't care. Somebody say something, could be the mildest thing, you answer them back. You know you're on edge. And that is the fifth stage where you just break loose and you don't even know why. So these are the 5 stages of burnout I've taken you through. If any of those have resonated with you, you are experiencing burnout. Okay? And don't be afraid to come in. Someone said
Devon, when he was first to Ira, he said 90% of you to Ira were burnt out.
taught at different schools there. I taught at Sahara for only 2 years. I taught at secondary, primary schools, apart from Sahara. So thank you. It's not just something with Sahara. It's in general, right? So the other 5 stages to look for. And don't be afraid to come because you might think it's something so simple, but it's not. If you ignore it, as I said, it can manifest later. So any little thing, just come to the clinic, come and get yourself checked out.
Thank you very much. People, you got a whole PD right there, right in a few minutes. Look at that. Yes, very enlightening indeed, because we've gone through those stages, not just what they are theoretically, but a living example of what that is like. Now, Dr. Yat touched on something that we're going to speak to about in a little bit, but I wanted to hear quickly from the other two doctors as well. What were some of the things that they themselves experienced that looking back now that they can see that these were issues? Maybe Dr. Emmanuel Brown can share with us what her experience was like.
Okay, so just quickly, Dr. Yad really summed it up quite nicely. And that's definitely a teacher who has been there for 10 years. So she definitely went through the phases of burnout. Just to go back to what I said initially about healthy habits. So I believe, well, we can all agree that a healthy lifestyle, okay, or health rather, begins with practicing healthy habits. So medicine or practicing medicine as a physician and being a teacher, there's a lot of parallel there, okay, in terms of the way you live your life. Both jobs are, or both careers rather, are extremely demanding. And a lot of persons say that's what you signed up for. So pretty much you signed up for dying, right, for the profession. So something as simple as how you start your day. Okay, so there is the rush in the morning, okay, because clinic starts at 8, teaching starts at 8. You have to be there before 8 anyway, for assembly, for briefing, whatever. Your day is supposed to start with a good breakfast. But how many of us can say that we have a good breakfast in the morning? For me, definitely not. Normally, when I was teaching, when I get to work, I would probably rush an unhealthy, not well prepared breakfast, or maybe some bread and cheese, okay, and something quickly just to gobble up, so something on your stomach. For medicine, the same. You get to the clinic, patients are already there. Sometimes you don't even get to eat properly, okay? You just have to eat something quickly, even between seeing patients. So even that habit of a good breakfast, which is well prepared, which is healthy with your vegetables, your fruits, that alone already starts unhealthy habits, right? That leads to indigestion. So some person might come and say, oh, doc, my stomach burning me. I don't know why the stomach burning me. Okay, but how do we eat? Okay, do we eat after we've ended class, probably at 3, or after we've ended clinic in the afternoon? So all of those symptoms, and it leads to gastric issues of ulcers. Then we have to go and do an endoscopy. So all the money we supposedly making going already in those tests, etc. Then it comes up as just other chronic illnesses, right? Diabetes, hypertension, thyroid disease, obesity, so many things, skin issues, whatever it is, depression. All things can manifest physically because of even starting from simple as our diets, okay, and how we, make time for eating well. So I think there I can start from what seemed like a simple habit, which can manifest into something unhealthy and tragic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very realistic. You know what? I find this is usual when we're talking with teachers. There's hardly ever breaking news, but just hearing somebody saying the things out loud validates the experience that we had. Sometimes we think we're the only one dealing with this, or this is just something that I have, or this is not a big deal. But just hearing it being said out loud tells us, yes, it really is an issue. Dr. Prosper, I don't know if there's anything even left for you to add, but there might be because you've had your own experience. As I said, it may have been a few months, but you did recognize some things as well. Anything that you wanted to highlight in your experience?
Okay, so I mean, everybody pretty much touched on a lot of the things that I would have shared on. Just a little background. My journey to teaching was a little bit unorthodox. I had done my internship at St. Jude after being a medical intern for a year. When it came time to apply for a job, they sat us down at the interview and I told them, respectfully, I honestly don't feel like I'm ready to move into that next chapter because internship had taken so much from me. So I had decided to go to teach for a short period of time. Well, my intention was to go to teach for good because I was like, I can't do this. When I got into teaching, I realized that, like Telemina had said, there were some parallels, and I'm just like, when we were interns, we worked 100 plus hours for the week. Coming to teach now, teachers on paper, I expected to work about 40 hours a week, but then I would see a lot of the times the working hours stretching a little bit longer than the 40 expected hours. And then we would start to see a lot of teachers now start coming in with like like Leanne had explained, there are signs of burnout that we can see on the outside where somebody comes to work, they're always tired. They're always saying, why so tired? It's Monday already. I can't wait for the weekend. There are these subtle signs that we see on the outside, but there are also the signs that we don't see that the person experiences by themselves. So for example, like Little was saying that there's the chronic pains. People don't see when you're in pain. People don't see when your stomach hurts. People don't see when you have these headaches, these issues, these small issues that tend to compound over time. And a lot of the times, the burden of a teacher is that my responsibility is to teach the next generation. So when more responsibility comes on the plate, a lot of times teachers it's almost like they feel a sense of responsibility to the next generation to accept that additional work because they feel like if it's not taken on, what will happen to these kids? And rightfully so, as Leanne said, sometimes if you leave, I remember when I was a student and my teacher didn't show up, I used to be so happy. I used to be ridiculously happy. But one of the things for me that really stood out was when I started teaching, I did the second term. I came in January and I stayed for the second term. The students did not have a teacher. I did Spanish and biology. They didn't have a teacher from October. So there was the added pressure of one, not having any sort of lesson plan. Secondly, everybody had already entered the second term of teaching and I still had to go back over the first, pretty much had to teach the first term again. The parents came in, the parents were, understandably upset. And then, so there was a lot, and I was telling myself, I thought this was supposed to be easier than what I came from. And I realized that I would take the lessons home and I would have these brilliant ideas. Oh, let me do some YouTube videos for the kids. So then that way it would make it easier for them to understand and take in assimilated information behind the back. And one thing I've learned about students, I'm now understanding it now that I'm older, is as a teacher, you can have the most brilliant idea. And you're like, oh, these kids are going to love it. And then you do it and only 2 students do it. And you realize you just wasted 5 hours of your at-home time where you're supposed to be off the clock, putting in extra work, and nobody appreciates it, not even the students. So that's one of the reasons why I realized that this burnout thing is such a real thing. Teachers take on a lot of responsibility because they feel like the world depends on them. And a lot of the times, one thing that I noticed now, I feel like my time as a teacher was more kind of like an observer. I participated, but I noticed how a lot of teachers, they have these really good ideas, and the principals and the higher administration, some of these people do not take the ideas of the teachers very seriously. And then it's almost like the teachers are trying to do something, the ministry is trying to have the principals move the school in a different direction. And ultimately, it's like the students are kind of left to figure it out, pick up the pieces. I've always told people, listen to the people who their job is to be on the floor every single day. They will tell you what things will make their life easier. So that's pretty much what I during my short 3 months, honestly, I would find myself saying, boy, I can't wait for Friday. And then Monday would come and then it's a rainy day and you thank God so much. It rains too much, class gets canceled. And it was just it in
Yes.
3 months, in 3 months, I was able to go through some of the stresses that people had been, and I'm like, some people have gone through this for years. So now I understand why when I was in Form 2 and Form 3, some of my teachers, they were always upset. They were always short-tempered. Some of them had drinking problems. Now understanding why a lot of teachers have chronic illnesses, hypertension, people are starting to suffer with cancer. A lot of teachers, when they retire, they don't even stay retired for long before they get ridiculously ill. But we will talk about these things later on in
Yeah.
the discussion.
Yeah, it's been like just this initial part of the discussion has been so rich. I mean, I'm looking at the time and it's like the hour is almost gone already. But you have touched on a lot of the things that we wanted to talk about in the second point. But listening to you, I'm hearing that a lot of these small issues like, back pain, headache, stomach ache, reflux, hoarseness, all the tiredness, it just becomes normal in educator life, right? And when something becomes normal, we stop treating it as information. And all of this is actually information that our body keeps telling us. And I mean, we see the results of it in, as Dr. Prosper mentioned, educators who become very ill, whether it is, during their career or close to their retirement. Some people don't even get to enjoy that retirement, right? So we see the results of it. People, this is information that our bodies and other teachers and other educators' bodies are also giving us that we really need to pay attention to. Now, you've all mentioned a whole lot of the symptoms that you've been seeing and patterns that you've been seeing in people who come to you now in your clinics, right? You're seeing a lot of those patterns. You've mentioned a lot of it already. Maybe just for a couple of minutes, if one or two of you can talk about, are there differences in how women educators and men educators are experiencing, reporting, and responding to issues? And what do you think might be some of those differences? So a lot of those symptoms that you keep seeing coming up, anyone wants to comment on, maybe just for about a minute, what you're noticing, patterns between men and women?
Well, generally in the clinics, I see more women.
Mm.
I find I do not know what it is with men and doctors. They're not, as forthcoming as women would be. They're probably too macho, I can handle this
Mhm.
and whatnot. So you find I see more women come in. But the women will have more issues like I would say the stomach cramps, the back pain, especially women when you have to go through your monthly, Mother Nature, coupled with that. So I see a lot of these women, and I don't know if there's any correlation, but let me tell you, we have a lot of Black women suffering with fibroids and PCOS, etc. And stress actually exacerbates these conditions. So I've seen a number of teachers come in with these type of issues who have fibroids, etc. And coupled with the back pain, etc., it's not a good combination for them. And for the older women who going through, like they probably closer to retirement, when they have to deal with the menopause or the perimenopause. And let me tell you, perimenopause starts from 35, not from 50. Perimenopause starts from 35. So you're not too young when you're in your 30s to have symptoms similar to menopause, right? So I would see with the older female teachers when they have the stresses of teaching coupled with the menopause or the perimenopause, let me tell you, honestly, retirement age should be earlier because I can't fathom being in a classroom with hot flashes. Having to say, sit down and stop this. Come on, that's chaotic, right? So that's the signs that's what I'm seeing with the females. With the males will more just tell you mentally, I'm just so stressed out, you know. And as Rashad mentioned, you would see they would probably take to going to the bar, you know, drinking, etc. That's how they cope mentally, etc. And I think it is probably because men handle the issues differently. Women, they would more speak to other women, but men, they probably do not have that kind of connection with each other to just openly express how they feel. So they just say, "Hey, let's go by a bar and whatnot, whatnot, whatnot." So we have to find a way for men to become more open and forthcoming with information. I don't know how, but we'll have to try. Right. Especially with the male teachers. Right. Because they do go through stuff, they just, I guess, keep it in, they bottle it in.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And any of our doctors who are men here have any insight to add? Are you seeing men in the clinic? Or is it just maybe because you're men doctors, they may be more inclined to come to you and share concern?
Well, if I had to speak in general, just to add to Dr. Yard contribution, men tend not to come to see a doctor until things are really out of hand. So, say for example, they have back pain, they will rub it with soft candle. They will they will not express how severe the pain is. They will downplay it. They will not say much about it. They will go and drink a by a bar, go and drink a by a rum shop, or they might buy a bottle of Bounty and just drink at their home, trying to cope with it. And it's only to the point where they cannot bear it anymore. That is when they come and look for help. And so you find that a lot of the times when it comes to follow-up visits, men tend not to do those things. You might see a man come in once or twice, but you tend to lose them in the follow-ups versus women. Women tend to be more on point when it comes to their follow-ups, doing their routine checkups and all of that. But you find that men are not so inclined to um, continue along that trajectory. Now, again, it could be societal expectations, men being macho, being men being macho, or they having issues or cuts or whatnot. You just suck it up, walk it off. You're a man. You can get over that. But they don't recognize that they actually need the assistance. And I don't know if Russia want to add, but from what I would have seen, that is what I noticed when it comes to the men versus the women.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I do agree with Eustace. One of the things that I've also noted with men is that men tend to not, like you guys mentioned earlier, they tend to not speak about certain things. So generally, men start to experience issues, especially when it comes to sexual health, around, especially in very stressful situations, in the late 30s, early 40s, we can start to experience symptoms of sexual dysfunction. And it's a topic that a lot of men find very taboo. A lot of men don't want to speak about it. Stress leads to a lot of many complications. As Leanne mentioned, we spoke about fibroids and perimenopause. What about the infertility issues? You know, these are things that we don't speak about. A lot of teachers enter teaching very young. They're trying to have kids, they're unable to have kids because really and truly stressful situations, when the body is under constant stress and the cortisol levels are high, it really affects the balance of the body. As you just rightfully mentioned, a lot of male teachers, because they don't have, and it's not the majority, it's just, but we have seen it that a good bit of men, they don't understand how to, they don't have the same circles and support that women have to really communicate these issues. So they end up picking up some bad habits. For example, they go to the bar or they start doing certain things, and then they end up neglecting their role as a male teacher in the lives of the young people. One thing that I've learned is that a lot of young people, they look up to their male teachers because to them, the male teacher is almost like a father figure outside of home. So you're home with your dad from nighttime. Most of the times your dad comes from work very, very tired. Your male teacher is, especially some of the role models that we look up to. These are the people that you see throughout your entire day. I remember when I went to SMC, the best school on the island. Anyway, when I was there, I remember looking up to a lot of my male teachers during the course of the day. You're like, you know what, this guy, you know, I like the way that he dresses. I like the way he carries himself. He's not obnoxious, you know. When he goes, he grooms his hair. And these are the things that we as young men, we take note of. And I'm sure in other schools, some of the young women are looking at these things and be like, you know what, these are good role models because this man reminds me of my father. This man reminds me of my grandfather. And then when a lot of men are not taking their health seriously, they don't have areas where they can, or safe spaces, they end up taking on bad habits, and then they now come and reflect it on the students. They're very stressed, they're tired, they come, and like somebody rightfully said in the chat, a lot of the students come from homes that are broken. So when you come from a broken home and you go to school, and then the male figures that you look up to are not, they're burnt out, so they're not able to express certain things correctly. It's almost like our generation of young people are kind of left to pick up the pieces between school and home from a generation of men who are just kind of just tired, really and truly tired. And I can't really blame men for, there's some men that drop the ball, but there are other men that are just physically tired. A lot of teachers, people may not want to admit it, but a lot of teachers take on extra responsibility. There's a lot of lessons that's going on after school. Some teachers even have part-time jobs in addition to teaching. And these things, they take its toll on the people. There are a lot of teachers who have gone through divorces because they don't have time for their spouse. There are a lot of teachers who, when their kids are grown, their kids want no relationship with them because when they were growing up, the parent never had time for them, was always busy focusing on a lesson, was always doing something. Like mentioned earlier, there are a lot of teachers who, when they get to that certain age, their health just deteriorates. And that's one of the things that I've noticed, especially women. I like the fact that women have their circles, and then through discussing with each other, they're able to come and say, girl, you know, this thing happened to somebody. I think you should really go get this checked out. Men, we just suffer in silence. And I think that that has a very negative detriment on the outcome. And I've also noticed that I've noticed lately that there have been a lot more women moving into teaching roles. I'm not too sure if that was just my experience where I was at SMC, but there were a lot less male teachers than what I remembered from 20 years ago.
Thank you. You brought up so many issues there, right? Like some of those taboo areas that relate to sexual health and how the physical health can affect that hormonal imbalances, dealing with perimenopause and menopause itself, and PCOS and infertility and impotence for men. You know, but you also brought up and both you and Eustace mentioned the social norms that attend men and how they care for their health, right? They're human, so they definitely experience those same symptoms. These symptoms are not unique to women, so they must be experiencing those symptoms too. But the space that they have for getting support, where women, as you said, can build those communities, the men may not have that. We haven't cultured our boys to be able to build that kind of community for themselves. Maybe that's something that we should start doing. And then that other aspect that you brought in, but how students observe the adults in their environment as mentors, right? Especially for the men. I really appreciate that point you made about how the boys may be looking at the men and saying, this is an example for me to emulate. So it's not just, and I think it goes back to what you said at the beginning about the burden that teachers have, right? Not just teaching students, caring for students, as Leanne mentioned, dealing with the social issues, but now it's even dealing with the psychological. How can you be proper mentors and examples for those young people? So maybe in the chat I can hear from the educators. What is one warning sign that you're experiencing right now that you will stop ignoring this too? From all that you've heard from these physicians, and again, with the teaching background, with the teaching experience from 3 months to 10 years and beyond, what is one sign you are going to stop ignoring this too? right? Because sleep quality cannot be underestimated, right? Sleep is when your body gets a chance to not just process what's happened for the day and process memory, but also to repair itself. So sleep is important. Somebody said leg pain. Seems so small and innocuous, right? The headaches, I can relate to those, right? Thank you for naming those, because you know what? This is how you begin your care work, by naming those things that are a problem right now. So let's round things off with the practical wisdom now. Again, just wisdom, just discussion. So for the physicians here, if you could speak to people who are early in their careers, before all of the problems begin, what are some things that you would want them to understand about caring for their physical health in a sustainable way? And again, is there anything you would say differently to men educators and to women educators, given the pressures that these groups experience? So what is some advice that you would give, clearly, not just the new teachers, but people who have been in here for 25 years and experiencing the burnout right now? What would be some pieces of advice that you would give?
Just to stick a note on the issue of the men before I forget,
Mm.
there is support now for the men in terms of the Ministry of Health trying to have more awareness, right, for men to present to clinics that is specific for men. So you have your local health centers where you have the men's clinic. So no women will be coming there to take priority over you. It is just for the men. So you come there and you get checked for your vitals, so screening for high blood pressure, diabetes, some of now men now in St. Lucia, prostate cancer. Okay, you get your PSA done, you get your digital rectal exam for your prostates, done. And whatever it is stress related, this is a place where you can come and you can speak freely and openly. Most times, not all the time, it would be conducted by male physicians, so that, sometimes, men to men, it makes it easier for guys to understand. So just saying out there to take advantage of the clinics nearby, whatever, ancillary, grocery polyclinic. So just be aware through social media, for your friends, for us as well, of what is going out there, to take advantage of those opportunities. The clinics are basically free. Okay, so don't worry about you don't have any money or anything. So your health is a priority. So make sure you take the time and opportunity to go get checked, so that your story as a teacher, as a mentor, it's different. Okay, where you're showing your students that your health is definitely a priority. And as I said earlier, habits. Good health starts with practicing good habits early on. So I would just like to admonish the teachers out there, the new ones, the older ones. It's not too late. Yes, you may have gone through most of the stages in which Dr. Yard spoke, but it's never too late to start over and to do it differently. And also encourage your other colleagues. This is an excellent forum that Angel has. And I think a lot can come out of this if we do it collaboratively. And at least you go home with something, even though it's one thing that you would have learned from the webinar today, and start making small changes, accumulate to big results. So that's what I have to, just share as I close.
Thank you. That's really, really valuable. That's excellent that there is a resource there specifically for men, by men physicians. So hopefully you can share with the men who are in your lives. It could be colleagues at school, it could be the men. And yes, this is around for educators, but there are other men in your lives as well who could benefit from a resource like this. So thank you very, very much for sharing that. Dr. Litterville, any final point or suggestions you want to share? Eye twitching? Come in. Yes, for sure. That's anxiety. That's something Rochelle spoke about very, very early in our discussion.
Okay, so I have a few pointers. the first thing I would say is to pay attention to your body, right? So when you're experiencing these symptoms, just say, okay, what am I feeling? Or you can start your day by saying, how am I feeling today? Just check it in with yourself, noticing if something new comes up or if it's something old that you've been ignoring, just paying more attention to your body, right? Noticing the cues when, okay, I'm not eating, I'm getting irritable, or I'm pacing, I need to use the bathroom. Just something simple as that. And I mean, if you burnt out, what's going to help is trying to find your identity beyond teaching, right? So remember that you are a person outside of being a teacher, and you have family. It's sorry. It's also good to have hobbies, right? Even if it's going by the beach, even if it's painting, if it is reading, listening to music. So your identity, having your identity has not been linked only to teaching, will help with burnout. Also, another important thing with burnout, boundaries. Boundaries are very important. Knowing that, okay, on this day, I do not take work home, or this particular thing is outside of my job responsibility. Who can I outsource this to, or who can I delegate this to? Because it's not my responsibility, right? And I mean, when we were having a discussion with Dr. Yad earlier, and she was like, well, sometimes you may be in the wrong profession. And at first I was like, huh? But now if you have to come with, I mean, being in tune with your body, having your identity outside of a teacher, and boundaries, sometimes you may just have to know when it's time to step away from the profession. So these are my points. These are my pointers, sorry, before we end.
Thank you very much. And she said it, and
And
clearly.
seek support. Sorry, I forgot my last point. Seek support when you need it. So even if it's coming to the doctor or, other professionals, yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very valid. There you go.
Okay, so
Yes.
Rochelle, it seems you were sitting next to me in class because we have the similar closing points, but different sub points, right? So basically 3 points I want to leave you with. First of all, have a plan. Second, remember you are one person. And the third one is don't be afraid to ask for help. So have a plan. If teaching is a stepping stone for you, like it was for me, have a plan. Say, okay, I am going to, do the teaching for, let's say, 5, 6, not like the 10 years, right? But while I, get my degree, or, I apply for something else or further my education, but have a plan, or else you will just get stuck. And then when you get stuck, you get irritable, you get agitated, and you gonna lash out on everybody for something that you are now resenting yourself for. And if teaching is what you truly love, you should still have a plan because there is a life beyond teaching. Okay, you have a family, right? So it's not just your students, it's not just your colleagues. But I remember when I was teaching at Sir Ira, there was, I would not say whose office, but there was this it's a slogan, leave work on time. Right? Leave work on time. The same way you get to work on time, leave work on time. Because your family also needs that quality time. Right? So you have to have a plan. Don't just scheme on weekends. Take your children to the beach, right? You have to have time for you, as Rochelle mentioned, your hobbies, etc. And even after teaching, you have to have a retirement plan. Because what I have noticed as well, I have seen that a lot of former educators suffering from Alzheimer's, strokes, and other issues, cognitive impairment, right? And that is because, throughout their whole career, the teaching career, it is just an influx of mental load and mental strain and a lot of interaction, etc. So that now, when you're no longer teaching, your brain has gone from that hyperactivity to nothing. And that is actually very dangerous. So you have to keep your mind active So as Rochelle said, make sure you have a hobby. And as I've been saying for years, I want to see us bring back the mothers and fathers groups. It was very important for retirees to interact, and even if they meet together and play bingo and play a little chess, but it keeps your brain active, your brain working, and that will decrease your chances of getting strokes, etc., etc. That's very important. So you must have a plan, whether teaching is a stepping stone or teaching is your love. Okay? So that's point one, have a plan. Two, remember yourself. You might be hard on yourself, like, oh my God, I didn't get to do the lesson today. But guess what? You got to talk and laugh with your students. You got to help a child who was in crisis, right? You are just one drop in that whole ocean of teachers. Just do your best every day, right? And that's it. Remember, you are one person. And the third point, don't be afraid to ask for help. All right. So as Salamina mentioned, there are the men's health clinics. And also now we have a program where the women can get their pap smears done for free, their mammograms done for free. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't even know, right, that they can take advantage of at the clinics. And you can come in. Betty Wells Polyclinic is free. That's where I work. We're open every single day. Weekends, holidays, we're open every day from 8 a.m. to midnight. Okay, I know we'll probably have an influx of people after this, but it's just to let you know that after school you can come to the clinic. On a weekend, on a holiday, you can come to the clinic and you can get your vouchers for your free pap smears, your free mammograms, your blood work, etc. So don't be afraid to ask for help.
I'll be there tonight.
So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. Very practical. And I love that resources and information about resources are being shared. I think this is exceptional. I mean, even if we got nothing out of this, we're getting some resources. Okay. And people that we know what the educator salary is like because we know the expenses of life, we're hearing these resources are available to you for free. Okay. Anyone else wants to share some closing suggestions, some additional suggestions?
So yeah, I wanted to just to kind of wrap up what everybody said. I wanted to start really by telling everybody, all teachers, that the burden of educating the next generation does not fall on your shoulder individually. Everybody has a part to play. It's not just, and that's, I think, a misconception of society that, oh, well, the teacher will take care of it. The teacher will take care of it. The teacher does one particular aspect. The parents do another part. The church is expected to do another part. The community is expected to do another part. So when the teachers understand that your job is not to form this young individual 100%, it's just to do your part. As he had mentioned, there were times I would go to class, I would have a lesson planned, and you walk in the class and you see the students. One of the things that I noticed is that a lot of the students would come in very, very exhausted. I don't know if the pace has changed from the time that I was younger, but I would look at them and I would realize that every lesson comes in, they give them 3 pages of homework. You're the last lesson for the day, and you come in and they're so exhausted. They already have some of the times they start doing the previous lessons homework in your class, and it's like they're just trying to get through their day. And there were times I would just come to class and we'd just have a discussion, and then it would lighten them up. Sometimes they would have questions that have nothing to do with the topic whatsoever. Some of the most memorable times that I have, especially going up A-level, I had a math teacher, and this man, for some strange reason, used to just talk about life. But he used to find a way that he would mix mathematics with life. And I cannot remember what I learned in any other class, but I would remember some of the things that he taught us in maths class. So that's that. So remember that the burden of educating the next generation does not fall solely on your shoulders. Everybody else has a part to play. Leanne also mentioned, well, other people also mentioned a 5-year plan, a plan for the future. I would honestly say a 5-year plan is important. The reason that I would say that is I'm not knocking anybody who was not able to get to figure it out within 5 years, but figure out what it is that you want to do. It may be something small. You want to open a small business, or you want to move into something maybe arts and something to take away the burden of teaching. the pressures or the stresses of teaching. It's important. Just to give you guys a quick tidbit. So somebody shared with me recently, there was a study that was done between 1997 and 2017. It studied the obituaries of over 8,000 doctors in the UK. And it found out that emergency medicine had a life expectancy of 58.7 years. General practitioners would live up to 80. Emergency medicine would live up to about less than 60. And I found myself sitting there and I'm just like, wow, if based on that calculation, I'm practically halfway through my life. And it's a very scary reality. So knowing that there are people who, going through the stresses, have found themselves in a situation where they did not live past a certain age, it puts a sense of urgency on us to kind of figure out what is our next step. Somebody has to do it, but it doesn't have to necessarily be you to carry that burden moving forward. I see somebody had mentioned something about dementia and why a lot of women are suffering with dementia. A lot of the times it's because women outlive men. During the course of the time of teaching, a lot of men, some men, they pick up very unhealthy habits, but generally women tend to outlive men. So when it comes now to cases of dementia, you'd find more cases of female dementia being reported because a lot of men have either died or they don't come to the hospital to speak about the dementia. Also, like I was telling somebody, when we get to a certain age, our body naturally breaks down. So as men, when we get to a certain age, above the age of 45, our prostates naturally begin to enlarge. Some men, their prostate will enlarge at a faster degree than others, which can cause urinary issues, etc., etc. And other men, the enlargement will turn cancerous. It's just a part of life. The same way for women, when they get to a certain age, they go through menopause, the estrogen comes down in the body. The estrogen is responsible for the strong bones. It's also responsible. It does have some neuroprotective measures. So usually women tend to start to develop dementia after menopause, which means that women in their old age are more likely to break something when they fall. And with all of these things in mind, knowing that our body is eventually going to get to a point of deterioration, I love how the Bible speaks about it. It says, remember your creator in the days of your youth. You know, while we are young, what are we able to do to lay a foundation for when it is that we become older? Because the fact of the matter is, every single one of us in this group chat, we're getting older. We're not getting any younger. The stresses of life are not getting any lighter. So it's important for us to kind of figure out what it is that we want to do. I do agree with the idea of starting off using all the free resources, but one thing that I will encourage is, as we get older, it's advised to get one steady physician. So instead of having your blood pressure done on this side and your blood work done here, and then this, you have one doctor. This is going to be your doctor for the next 20 years. And ideally, preferably a specialist in internal medicine, somebody who has knowledge of geriatric care and what to expect as we begin to get older. A side note, if you go to a doctor and a doctor does not put a stethoscope on you, does not examine you, then I think that may be something that may need to be considered to change. A doctor should spend time sitting down with you, at least do a proper physical examination. It is not normal for a patient to go to a doctor's office and not be touched, not be examined, especially as we're getting older. It is important for us to hold other doctors accountable as well, because people want to know what's happening. There are people who have come to the hospital, they're like, doc, but I've been seeing certain doctors for years and they've never touched me, they never listened to me. And I would tell them, well, this is what we found. And they're like, but if I had known that previously. So it's important as we grow, get one doctor. I mean, like we're saying, you guys are starting off where we're still more or less young. Get the free resources as they're available right now. But as you begin to build up a medical portfolio, more or less, have one specific doctor whose job is it to interpret these things, whose job it is to kind of manage you throughout the course of the next few years, so that you make sure you're always doing your checkups on time. And even when you get your medicals done every year, they have something to compare it to, because not to say you did your medical here and you did that medical there, and then 2 years later, you have a doctor that's always on your back telling you to get your mammograms done, get your pap smears done, get your prostate exams done. That is our job. That is our job. And another thing is pretty much just to just as Leanne mentioned earlier, I don't like to refer to the pink paper as sick leave. I like to, when I tell people I consider it to be wellness leave, it changes the trajectory of the conversation. People think that I don't want this pink paper because I'm not sick. But I tell a lot of people it's because I want you to become well. Burnout is a serious thing. There's something that we put on the pink paper. A lot of people have it. It's called acute stress disorder. When the body is under enormous or tremendous amounts of stress, we begin to see a lot of the things that were mentioned in the chat. A lot of the things that we push ourselves through is not normal. Example, you sprain your ankle, you keep walking on it. What eventually happens? So that's why rest is important. The body naturally needs rest. Inflammation causes a bunch of different stuff. Stress reduces the immune system. The immune system naturally fights malignant cells. It's normal for us to have cancer cells or mutated cells every single day in our body. Our immune system is capable of fighting these cells. What happens when we become stressed and then the immune system comes down? These mutated cells, they have a better chance of multiplying. Then we realize that, hey, people are starting to develop cancers and starting to develop other chronic conditions. Somebody also said, Rochelle also said, know your body. If you know that you're pooping 3 times a week, and it might sound so mundane, you're pooping 3 times a week or twice a day, and all of a sudden you're now pooping once a week or once every 2 weeks, do not ignore these small things. If you realize that you would get the flu twice a year, and now you're getting the flu 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year, do not ignore these symptoms. If headaches was not something that you suffered with and you're now starting to have constant headaches, do not ignore these things. These are things that sometimes by early detection, it can help us honestly try our best to prolong life as best as we can. So I agree with all the other panelists, take care of ourselves, find somebody who can be your designated doctor, use all the free resources that are available, and don't be afraid to seek help when it's needed. Don't feel like the world is on your shoulders. It is not. Everybody has a part to play.
Thank you so very much. Really appreciate that. And if there's anyone else who really, I think, okay, Dr. Monrose, I see you've unmuted. You wanted to share something as well.
Well, a lot of my colleagues did mention a lot of the different talking points, but just to drive home the point that the minor issues that we dismiss, we need to pay attention to it. So the back pain that, like Rashad was saying, when you have those little issues, you notice changes in your body. Don't brush it aside, but get it checked out. It's better for you to go to the doctor and let the doctor tell you that everything is all right than to dismiss the little issue. And then when it propagates and becomes more concerning, and then you go for an actual evaluation, and then you realize that, hey, this is more serious than I actually thought. It's better for us to catch it at the earlier stage than to catch it at the later stages where there's not much that can be done. So, for instance, you might wake up one day and notice that you've been having back pain towards the buttocks for about 6 months. You thought it was the bed, you changed the mattress, you went to court, you went to Massey Home, you got a new mattress, you go and lie down, you still feel the back pain. You say, well, you know what, I'll take a Panadol, take ibuprofen, and see if the back pain goes away. And it's only when you go to the doctor, you run some tests, you realize that you're actually anemic. So the tiredness, the back pain, you're anemic, and then you've seen all your other, in terms of your liver function tests, you've seen your ALTs, ASTs, and the other markers, you've seen that they're also affected as well. And then after they do further examination, further workup, then you learn that you have multiple myeloma, which is a form of cancer. But it started off with just the back pain. There are other people that may experience symptoms like they have a sore throat that didn't really seem to go away, and they're hoarse and they're talking and it's not going away. But you say, you know what? Drink my ginger tea, drink Shini 12, drink all the different things, and hope that it gets better. And it's only after you do further workup, you go and you do your tests, you do all the different analysis, that is when the doctor comes with the diagnosis that you actually had some form of throat cancer. So all of these things that you have to be mindful of. Better that you go to the doctor when you have those minor issues, just to make sure that everything else is okay, rather than to delay and let it propagate. And also, it's good, like my other colleagues mentioned, go to the doctor, try and do at least your annual checkups. So just to make sure that your blood count is fine, just a general checkup, just to make sure that you're well prepared for the new year. So you're preparing for school, you have to prepare your materials, you're preparing your plans and all of that. Take time to go to your doctor, do your routine checks, just to make sure that you yourself, you are well enough so that you can continue the school year. Don't delay it. Don't think that because I'm taking time to go to the doctor, that I'm neglecting my duties as a teacher. Don't think that the students will not have adequate supervision because you're not there, because you cannot provide for them. At the end of the day, if you are unwell and if you are not taking care of yourself, at the end of the day, and that's the reality of life, you drop dead today, the ministry replaces you tomorrow. There's going to be a new teacher to take over from you, and life continues without interruption.
Whether we like it or not. Yeah.
That's true. So that is why, as teachers, take priority, be cognizant of these little warning signs. Take care of yourself. Put emphasis on yourself so that when you take care of yourself, you are in good health, then you can really impact your students and push for better tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So much. Now we've heard so much in the previous discussions that I had with these physicians. Telemina said something that I just think is a good note to end on. What do you want your story to be? So think about how you want to be remembered, right? I don't think there were any gravestones marked Teacher of the Year 2025, right? It's loving mother, loving son, right? It's about those relationships that you have with people, how you make them feel, what you did for yourself and for those people in your community, right? So we essentially encouraging balance here, and we're encouraging care for yourself. Self-care has become a phrase that's just tossed around to mean be selfish, but not necessarily. We're talking about genuine care for your physical health. And just sitting here, I feel like I have learned so much from this panel. And people look at the faces here. These are not people who they are parents. I don't know if you've realized, I think I heard a baby a while ago in Prosper's background. And I know two other doctors here who have babies in the background too. Somebody had their first day of school today, and another baby is not too well. But here they are coming to us to share, because I said, we want to be able to share something with teachers that will have real value for them. So before we end, I just wanted to send some hearts, send some love to the physicians who have taken time. People, these are our local physicians from St. Lucia, from our education system, from our communities, our young people who have moved into the medical profession and have given us that kind of advice to take care of ourselves physically. So I want to just close with our next poll. Okay. I think I've shared those with you. Let's go back. What action you're going to take? Oh, I think something is being shared. So, what is your next step after tonight? And as I said, we are going to share the contact information for the physicians here. We're trying to make this as frictionless as possible for you. If you have seen those warning signs, please, contact one of them, or if you have your doctor, make that appointment. I see people making that commitment to themselves there to book a screening, to set a boundary, to change some habits and to share what they've heard here with someone else. All of these are very, very valuable. And just looking by the chat, I see people are finding real value in this. You know me, I have that innovation mindset. I am ready to think of what's the next thing we can do. How can we bring people in a physical space where they can benefit from maybe consultations with doctors? So there are a couple of things that maybe that you can look out for. You can reach out to these physicians one-on-one. SIL can also see how we can arrange, if it's some way, do we bring medicine to you at the schools? Do we bring you to the physicians? We will figure something out. I think another important aspect, and this is part of what SIL does, is research. We need more documented evidence of what works, what we need, what are the realities of health in our education system. What are some of the patterns that we're seeing and recognizing? So if you see any call for participants for that research, because I'm opening my friends here to let's start some medical research in St. Lucia, and maybe something around teachers and educators. All right. So thank you very, very much. I hope that this has been valuable to you. We've shared some love with the physicians. Replay will be available on our YouTube channel. Follow SIL so that the next webinar that comes up, you may be able to benefit just as well. Yes, we are proud of them. You know, we are really proud that our educators have moved on to this profession and can come back and still share with us. Check us out for the next webinar that we may have, and look out for the email that will come to you with the details of our physicians' contact information and maybe a little overview of some of the things that we discussed. Feel free as we close to unmute and say thank you to the doctors as well. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm not in St. Lucia, but I benefited a lot. I came late, but I enjoyed it. I wish Dominica could get something like that, because we as teachers, trust me, what you all said tonight have me really thinking.
Thank you.
And I know some of my colleagues would really love to.
Coming soon to you.
Agreed.
Thank you. Have a good night from St. Vincent.
Thank you from St. Vincent
Thank
as well.
you very much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you from Dominica. It was a good session, although I came late.
Thank you for having us. So
Thank you for having us.
So I would encourage everybody this week, respectfully try to turn down something that's an additional set of work. Just try one thing. Say no to one thing. One extra thing.
Hey, that's medical advice, okay?
That's medical advice, yeah.
I will do one or more than one. Turn down more than one.
Thank you, Dominica in the house. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
We even had a colleague on.
Oh, nice. Wonderful.
Good night, everybody. I'm happy to see Pastor Simmons, teachers,
Oh,
still
Lord.
doctors
Hi,
in the
Dolores.
house. And the topic is was very not only well discussed, but pertinent to our day. There's a number of teachers who, although it was burnout, but who may have developed some ailment because of the burnout of teaching, and especially our male teachers not going to any screening or seeing any doctor. So I'm hoping that this is the beginning of some sort of, how you would call it, awareness for teachers. But most of all, as I said, I'm happy to see the 5, although I heard Dr. Prosper big up SMC, which I'm a past student of also, but I am also very happy with the 5 who at least got the SIRA experience that may have prepared them for where they are right now. So have a good evening, everybody.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good night, have a good week, and take care of yourselves.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.